Everybody, I will kick us off with a little bit of a deck, so don't get too crazy here, but I'm going to share this deck real quick, introduce our fantastic guest tonight, and I will be honest, I use Microsoft Teams, so the Zoom is hang on 1 second, figure this out. All right, let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
All right, excellent. Well, I first wanted to explain. So first of all, thank you to everybody that joined today. I know there are a few folks that are going to be joining in a little bit. I got some notes saying, hey, I'll be joining 10 minutes late and stuff like that. So that's great. We have some great people on the line that will help me moderate the chat. So please interrupt whenever, if anybody has any questions or if anybody needs to interrupt for any reason, just let me know. But I did want to give some pretexts to our Black Alumni Connection series and really the purpose. So the whole point of our UGA College of Public Health monthly connect with our community is the Black Alumni Connection series was launched on National Public Health Week last year. And the purpose was to commemorate the 60th year of desegregation at UGA. And to recognize our public health change makers in color. And so we're very excited about that entire initiative. And these alums paved the way for the formation of the College of Public Health in 2005, which I'm very proud about because I joined the very next year and really the first alumni group. So I was really excited about that class. I'm now an alumni, I'm now on the board, and I'm very excited to be connected with this team, super high performing team. And I'm very excited that a lot of the folks on our board are actually on the line today. So I'm very excited about that. Just as excited about our speaker, Jaynaé Brown, who I have had the pleasure to work with for many months and years. I'm very excited. She's young. I'm older than Jaynaé. So although many years, Jaynaé's still young. She's great. She's doing well. But we both met at Emory. And as you can tell from her bio, she started in 2012 at Emory Healthcare as an operations analyst, which was a very new program that I helped to develop. And I was very excited about it. And then having a superstar like Jaynaé start off in the program and seeing where she has ended up is one of the coolest stories. I can't wait to hear again. It's great for me to reconnect with Jaynaé. This is kind of like my FaceTime with Jaynaé because I haven't talked to her for a very long time. So this is me connecting with her. Since her Emory stint of a few years growing in her leadership position and then moving to Southern Company into an employee wellness centric role is a really cool story. I can't wait to hear more from her around that. And then also additionally, Jaynaé herself personally, if you follow her on Facebook, she's always about the active life and doing as much as she can. She's got a cute 2-year-old kid called Kennedy. And let's just remind ourselves it's 5:05 p.m. She's got a kid, a husband, she's got a lot going on at home right now, and it's 5:05. So just know that as we're talking about employee wellness, we're literally talking about the situation right now and the things that we're having to deal with right now and the implications to it and all those things. So Jaynaé, thanks for your time. We're gonna go into a lot of the questions and stuff shortly, but I did want to sort of tee up the conversation with a few slides just for a few minutes really quickly. I always like to start off my team meetings with a story of charm. And I thought this was a great one. Lindsay and I were talking about this week. And our UGA College of Public Health 2005 Society is a fantastic opportunity for people to get involved, for folks to donate. What I think is just so cool about this society is it launched last fall. We've already helped 2 students to the point where one student, to be able to meet the deadline for tuition, this fund was able to provide that student $3,500 before the deadline, which they wouldn't have met. I think it's absolutely fantastic to give these folks that have a dream in College of Public Health, in public health as a career, to be able to help fund that. And so this is a quick little tidbit about why it's so important to give and to give back to the community in general and to the people that you love as they grow into their career and the things that they want to go into that you've aspired to your entire life and work towards. And I also put my little Twitter post 31 seconds ago, but that was also 21 minutes ago, where I joined this 2005 Society initiative. So it clearly is doing its job. And I was excited that Lindsay told me we've already helped two students with this, which is really excellent. So incredible initiative. And just around the topic for today, I think it's a big topic. A lot of us see the celebrity impacts, like, you know, around Chesley, Miss USA, Robin Williams, and other folks that we have looked up to in many cases. Whether it's mental health, employee wellness, it's all mental health, whether you call it employee wellness or whatever. Long story short, it's mental health. And the Mental Health America report I thought was really interesting, and broke it down into the different categories that I thought was interesting today, around workplace stress, employee burnout, work environment, financial insecurity. All these different things impact the people that work in your organization, your peers, your staff, your leaders in some cases. And so it's a big strain. And eventually what it ends up being is a financial strain. And then companies have to realize that, hey, this is going to impact my employees' wellness, which means it's going to impact their productivity, which means it's going to impact financials. So I'll show in a few slides how companies are ramping up on employee wellness, employee benefits to improve mental health and wellness. And that's why we have Jaynaé today, which is fantastic. So Jaynaé will be able to actually provide some context to all of this stuff. But just in short, workplace stress, 9 in 10 employees report that their workplace stress affects their mental health. That's insane. 3 in 5 employees are not receiving adequate support from supervisors to help manage stress. A lot of this has to do not just with the leader, but the coaching abilities, the abilities to train these leaders to become managers of people. It's not necessarily let's blame the leader. It's literally all mental health, and it's a bigger topic than the employee is not getting adequate support from the supervisor. The supervisor is probably going through some issues as well. Employee burnout's a big deal. And at WellStar, we have a 48% turnover for our coders, which is a huge deal. That's one of our most specialized employee groups, higher salary groups and all that kind of stuff, and they could go anywhere. So the employee burnout's a big deal, huge turnover risk, which is a financial risk for the organization. And compared to 2018, you guys could see it's 56% of the folks that are looking for new positions compared to 40% just a few years ago, which is insane. The next stat around work environment is 65% of employees find it difficult to concentrate because of their work environment, compared to 46% in 2018. And only 5% of employees strongly agree that their employer provides a safe environment for employees who live with mental illness. And mental illness across the board could be across many different topics, whether it's stress, depression, anxiety, all those different things. So I hope to get into some of that conversation with Jaynaé as well, to sort of talk about, you know, benefits, how we're going to be able to address some of those things, some of the things that she's hearing around it, all those types of things. And of course, there's a financial impact. But the interesting thing about the pandemic, starting in March 2020, and if you Google when did the pandemic officially start, it's on my birthday, March 12th, 2020, March 12th. So every March 12th that I'm going to experience is the pandemic. So I might be a historic figure, I don't know, but it's an awful reminder of what happened March 12th, 2020. And I remember it till today. It's almost like, in a weird way, September 11th, but in the reverse. September 11th was a terrorist attack versus a public health absolute disaster from a pandemic perspective. So really insane with the timing, but very interesting. And if you look at these graphs, you'll see the purple pieces being by the end of the year of the pandemic. So we had COVID, March 12th, 2020 begin officially on the news saying this is a real thing. And then just 9 months later, take a look at that graph, and that's the purple. So 9 months later, you see people reporting higher symptoms of anxiety, depression, and both anxiety and depression. And I was one of those people. I signed up for one of our benefits at WellStar applied for free for 6 free visits, 6 free mental health visits with Spring Health. And we were able to get free consults and things like that. And as you all know, mental health visits in general are very expensive visits from a dollar perspective. And so getting 6 free visits from WellStar was a huge benefit, a massive savings for our staff. And we saw it in the Great Places to Work surveys that staff appreciated that. So I know personally from my WellStar department in the business office, our rating skyrocketed to 90% because WellStar was able to deliver a lot of wellness and employee benefit type things related to mental health, which was really important for us. So hang on one sec. Go to the next slide. Again, back to the financials. Health systems, companies, they're all impacted by mental health. If the employee is not well in terms of, they're super stressed, they're depressed, or there are things that they're thinking about that causes anxiety, productivity is a dip. That increases financial strains. You have higher turnover, which increases the cost of onboarding and things like that. So there's a lot of company implications from a financial perspective, which is why you'll see companies spending and investing more. Jaynaé is very familiar with this, of why companies are now looking towards how do we improve benefits for employees to improve their wellness. And we see from this chart that a lot of companies out there, whether it's healthcare, business, investments, are looking to invest in their employees' healthcare, whether it's mental health, stress management, or telemedicine, as an example. And this is just there are a lot of celebrities speaking out. I just mentioned Chesley Christ, Robin Williams, a few celebrities that passed away because of mental health, illnesses and things like that. And I think when people think of mental health, they think, something's mentally wrong, but it could be things like stress, depression, like things that we feel every single day, just being a part of, anything, our daily life. And so I think it's important for people to speak up. I think it's important for people to talk about it. And I'm incredibly lucky that we have somebody like Jaynaé today to help us navigate this conversation. So I will stop sharing and finally get to the best part of this conversation, Jaynaé's face. Jaynaé, just why don't we start with you just telling us a little bit about yourself,
Sure.
and how you got to where you are.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Welcome and thanks for joining. So I'm Jaynaé Brown. I actually got my start in undergrad. I attended Clemson University class of 2010, and I majored there in public health, went on to go to grad school and majored in public health there, and just kind of started my, healthcare career at Emory Healthcare. From a personal perspective, I like to travel. I recently got into, as kind of Adam mentioned earlier, just some self-care activities. Mine mostly include working out, eating healthier, and it's just perfect for Adam's topic for the introduction, because I actually, as he mentioned, have a 2-year-old. So after she was first born, I just kind of felt like I needed something of my own to own and to participate in, and just kind of get my mind off of like the wife and mom duties 24/7. So I actually started working out. I lost 20 pounds doing that, just kind of from postpartum, and just thinking through that and trying to navigate the new life of being a mom and wife, and also working. So at the time of the pandemic, I went on maternity leave in January of 2020 and have not been back to the office since. So the world actually shut down when I was on maternity leave, and I did not set foot back into the office. I still haven't in over 2 years. So I've been working from home, but just trying to figure out, now that I'm working from home, that's a new life all in itself. Having a new baby, just trying to navigate how I can, survive in this new lifestyle, this new role that I have. How am I going to navigate that and make sure I take care of myself? So that's been a big part. I'm still working out, still sharing my story on social media, just as accountability for myself, and just kind of keeping that going. I also said I love to travel. I recently just started doing a little bit of just kind of going out the box, trying new things. We've done random things like glass blowing as a date. Me and my husband, we've been married for 5 years. We've done like glass blowing, rock climbing, just different things to kind of keep it interesting and just try new things together. So we like to do that. And then my 2-year-old daughter, Kennedy, we're trying to get her involved. She's trying to do soccer and just things like that, just watching her grow and celebrating her and enjoying her come into her own with her personality. So that's been fun.
I love her name too, Jaynaé. You briefly touched on the public health piece, but can you tell the group, because we have some students on the line, how did you become interested in public health? Like, what was the original, interest?
So I have a very scientific explanation for that. At Clemson, the major was actually called health science. And as a senior in high school, I was like, well, I want to do something with health and I love science. So there we have health science. I didn't know what it was. I had no clue what I was getting into, but that's how I chose my major. And I stuck with that. I went to the pre-professional track at Clemson. I thought I was going to be a physician assistant. I thought I was going to be an anesthesiologist. And then I saw like the schooling requirement, how long that took. And I said, nope, not for me. So then it just kind of ended up, honestly, I needed something to do after I graduated. I didn't have a plan. And I said, schooling sounds like it's fun for right now. So let's try a master's degree. So I applied at UGA. I was Clemson, if you don't know, is in South Carolina. So it was out of state for us. I was really tired of paying the out-of-state tuition. So I came back home to Georgia. We didn't really grow up as dog fans, but of course, I'm like, I'm going to go to UGA. And so became dog fans and did my Master of Public Health there. And that's the story. So it's not too scientific, but it's honest.
Hey, you became a dogs fan. I think that's the most important thing that everyone wants to hear in this call. No, I love that. I think I feel like every public health professional has that kind of story of like, I always wanted to go into medicine, but I'm either impatient or I hate dealing with blood or something like that, because those are my two stories. And let's figure out how to still stick with it. I think for the students on the line, what resources did you find most helpful during your career to really be able to go from a graduate student in public health to a healthcare administrator at Emory, for example?
So I actually found, so you mentioned the Operations Development Program that you helped have a hand in develop. So I actually found that program and applied via DogLink. So that was kind of my into, I had someone else in my cohort who had got accepted already into the program. And I was like, this sounds interesting. Emory's wonderful. Why wouldn't I want to work there? It's in Atlanta. I'm living here. So let's try it. So I actually found that listing via DogLink. So I would say, any resources that UGA has, take full advantage. They are there for you to utilize, to take full advantage of that. And then, I saw that listing and I applied and got accepted. So that's how I got my start at Emory. I would also say networking. So if you have a chance to attend networking events, I know CPH does a lot of networking events. I actually had a chance when I was a graduate student there to travel to DC for a conference. And just even if you aren't comfortable networking with people, start to learn and start to understand and figure out what you're interested in. Go to different sessions at these conferences. I would also advise you to network because that's very important, but I know some people are better at that than others. So kind of get your foot in the door, go to conferences, figure out what it's like, what do you need to successfully network with others? And then what topics are you interested in? Because that can kind of guide you to where the resources are, right? So if you know what you want to go into, you can research that area and figure out what resources are available. So just kind of knowing what you want to do and being focused and take your approach and saying, well, I want to do this. So what resources are out there for me to get more information about that?
I love that. I love the DogLink mention. I love the mentorship program that UGA's come up with. Mm-hmm. I wish I had that actually while I was at UGA, but that was also in the 19th century. But the mentorship program today, like the website, the ability to manage your mentors and mentees and be able to like do status updates and stuff like that, like they've done an amazing job on the mentorship program piece. So I encourage both the mentors and the mentees on the line to really take advantage of the mentorship piece at UGA. Huge progression on how that online platform works. It's fantastic. I've done it 3 times. It's been it's been really, really good. Jaynaé, thank you. What were the main challenges you experienced in your early days in your budding career? Because you go from a graduate student to a full-time employee, and now you deal with a lot of emotional people like Jaynaé, metrics, this, that, and the other. It's a lot, and I don't think we get much prepared for the professional life as we'd like to. So what challenges do you have to deal with?
So I would say my main challenge kind of going into a professional career is learning to ask questions, but asking in a way that doesn't sound like you're trying to take over or you're trying to, come at someone like, well, why are you doing it this way? Like, don't ask in that way, but just asking questions to understand so that you can have enough information to either process, improve, or make suggestions, and not just sound like you're just coming at them and saying, well, my way is better. So take time to learn and ask questions, learn from people who have been doing it the same way for years, ask them why have they been doing it that way? They might have a really good reason for that. Maybe it's been so long, they haven't had a fresh set of eyes to look at it and see what can improve. I'm sure, as young adults coming out into the world, you can offer some different perspective or things that you have learned with technology or things like that, or even in the healthcare field now that they might not know about. Ask enough questions to understand first before you start making suggestions, because it really makes people feel like you are there to understand what they're doing and to really help, instead of just coming in and trying to take over and they want to keep their jobs. You're trying to take their job. That's not what you're there for. You're there to understand and ask questions and really help move things forward and help process improve. That's really the ultimate goal of any job, is you should always be looking for opportunities to improve the process, and take out any pain points, whether that's any clients, customers, patients, administrators, your bosses, your boss's boss, whatever that is, and whoever that is. Look for opportunities to take away those pain points. And you can only do that once you understand the process enough to make suggestions for that.
That is an excellent answer. I'm glad we didn't prep for this because it really is such a real life thing. Like, if you can't be humble in your role, in your new role, in your existing role, and just accept that there are things, there's history around the role, there are different things that you have to accept and learn and things like that, and not just come with your ideas, but instead listen, which is very key. I think, Jaynaé, that's one of the key things. I see one of my colleagues, Rochelle Stevens, on here. One thing both of us talk about all the time is respect, credibility,
Yes.
really just listening, right, to people, and not just being like, oh, I'm the know-it-all, and I think when you enter any workforce, with some sense of, as Taylor used to teach me, my former boss, humble pie. Everybody's got to have some humble pie. Just learn, just listen a little bit to the person that actually knows their job, and then you'll be able to work with them and gain some credibility and get things done. You can't
honestly,
done without
honestly, Adam, I would say it makes people more receptive to change. So once the change does happen, if they understand that you've taken the time to learn and to ask them questions to really understand, they are really more open and susceptible to change. So I think that definitely helps in that situation.
That's exactly right. And if anybody in the comments has anything to say around this or needs to speak up about it, please let us know.
Hey, it's Keisha. I wanted to just piggyback on that, Jaynaé. I think that we should always ask questions, not even when you're new, but just really when you're trying to learn and understand something. I ask a million questions. I know when people are in a meeting with me, they're probably like, oh my gosh, here she goes. But you're right. It builds the relationship, and it's okay to not know. I think a lot of times we're afraid to not know. Yeah. And so we're afraid to let it be known that we don't know. Like, I just got hired. I have no idea how to do this job. And that's okay. That's that humble pie that Adam's talking about. You're just like, you know what? I don't know, and I'm willing to learn, and I want to ask questions. I want to make sure that I'm doing the best job that I can do. So even if you're not new, but it could just be something different, it's okay to ask.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly right. And Keisha, thanks for speaking up. I didn't know you asked so many questions.
You have not been on, we haven't been together in a while. You don't remember?
I'm teasing. I know you do ask a lot of questions. And I think that's great. Asking questions is great. And it all goes back. I think if we tie all these conversations to the importance of employee wellness, if you feel like you can't ask questions, all those different things tie into all the stuff that we're talking around anxiety, depression, stuff like that. If you don't feel comfortable in your workplace and you can't do what Keisha was just mentioning or Jaynaé was just mentioning, that's something you need to talk to somebody about, and reach out about. And hopefully your organizations, offering things like Spring Health to your opportunities to be able to speak to people about things. But Jaynaé mentioned networking. That's a huge thing. Talk to somebody. Just say, hey, I feel uncomfortable bringing this up. It might be because your leader may not be the person that wants to listen or that can listen. But you've got to speak about these things because you have to feel comfortable in your work environment so that it improves your life and your work-life balance and things like that. Jaynaé, I switched from Emory to Athena Health from a work-life balance perspective. I was very stressed out at Emory, I'm not going to lie. I love Emory Healthcare to death. I literally do. I talk to Rochelle almost every other week because I miss Emory. I miss the vibes. I miss it all. And I miss the people,
yes,
amongst everything else. But one thing I was stressed out at Emory. I had nothing to do with Emory. It was me all personally when I take things back. So I wanted to ask you what made you switch from Emory into Southern Company and how has that been?
So I have another scientific answer for that. And it actually it really sort of fell at my lap. So I at a point in Emory, probably about, I don't know, a year and a half, a year before I actually left, I had started considering another job and seeing, I wanted to try something different, but ultimately decided to stay. And then in that year that I was looking, I reached out to my bridesmaids, her now husband. I was like, if you guys come up with anything or see anything, come at you, just send it my way. I'll be glad to take a look at it and try it out and apply. And so about a year later, her boyfriend or now husband reached out and said, hey, my team lost someone. They're looking to hire some folks. Would you be interested? And I said, well, sure. Send me the job description and I'll take a look. And, it was great. I said, this sounds cool. I'll apply. I actually never had to actually send in an application. He had me come talk to his manager. In Southern Company culture, they're called get to knows, which are basically like informal, interviews. And so I went in, talked to his manager. He said, okay, this is great. Come back and talk to my boss. And, I went back and then I went back a third time. She said, okay, this is great. Talk to my boss's boss. And I said, okay. So I came back 3 times and they're like, okay, so we want to make you an offer. I'm like, okay. And I just me personally, I am very analytical. I'm very calculated. I'm very, what are the pros and cons of everything? And it took me about a week and a half to actually accept the offer because I was just, Emory Healthcare was my first job out of grad school. I was comfortable, right? So I was comfortable. I knew what I was doing. I had moved up as a project manager. I knew my area of work. I was very comfortable, kind of knew it like the back of my hand. And I was like, well, man, if I go someplace else, I'm going to have to restart and learn something new. And, I'm just going to have to get used to things. But right here, I know my routine. I know I wake up. I know I go to work. I know what I'm doing every day. And so I actually had a long conversation with my husband. I said, I'm just really scared about taking this job. I really wasn't looking for it right now. So how should I feel about this? And he goes, when you find something or something comes to you and you're not looking for it, it's called a blessing. I said, well, you know what? You're right. So I just took the leap and I said, you know what? I accept. And honestly, I gave my 3-week notice at Emory, and the last week that I was at Emory is when I found out I was pregnant. So I felt like it was kind of like divine timing. Yeah. Where I went ahead and took that leap and, just trusted everything was going to work out. And so far, so good. So that's kind of how I got my start and made my transition. So it just kind of fell in my lap.
I love that. So when you joined Southern Company, did you feel a change in yourself, just mentally?
Yes. So I, like Adam, it was very stressful. And I say that in a good way because I like to be a person who people come to for questions. And I like to either know the answer or figure out the answer because that's the best way that I learn. So I learn by doing. If you've ever had a manager that is kind of like a working manager, I was a working manager in one of my roles at Emory. That's just the way that I learned the best is actually by doing. So I found myself just doing a lot and, doing the things and being in the details, being in the weeds, as they say. So it was very stressful, and it was good in a way that I was learning and I felt like I was contributing, but it was stressful in a way that I felt like I was having dreams about work and people at work. Like this probably is not healthy. That I'm so involved with work where I'm having dreams about different projects going on at work. So I just felt like, it was very stressful in that way. And so when I went to Southern Company, it was really a culture shock for me. I'm not gonna lie. So Emory is nonprofit. They have different rules. Southern Company is not as nonprofit. So there's different rules there. I just really, the shock, I was just like, wow, this is great. I felt like fresh air, honestly. Just a different role, a different perspective, I've never worked in HR, so that was that. So just the opportunity to learn something new and something different, and then kind of take a slice of humble pie, because I was starting, I kind of moved up in Emory, but now I'm kind of starting at the bottom at Southern, as far as not knowing anything about the company, not knowing about the culture, not knowing about HR in general, and just applying my knowledge of process improvement and change to the role. So had it been come down to, does this person know HR? Do they have HR experience? I would have never gotten the position. But it really came down to just knowing how to apply my process improvement experience to a different area, and now doing that successfully.
Yeah, I think it's a weird combination of back in the day, and I say back in the day because it was years ago, Jaynaé, for you and I especially, and Rochelle, and and everybody else that's on the line, like Keisha and even Phil Smith, who I know from WellStar. But I always feel like in your first job, you always have to deal with this pressure of trying to get things done, being a hard worker, and all those types of things. So you always have. I know we keep saying Emory, but Emory also helped to build cornerstones and things that help us to understand what we need to be better at, what we've learned, and all those different things, because it was our first real job. So I think that's the other thing. It's not, don't hate your first employer. It's your first employer really helped you figure out your life and figure out what you want, figure out all these different things. So I hope nobody's taking Emory as a negative. It was Jaynaé's and I's first role. We learned a whole lot from our first role. We worked our butts off, and we learned what meant in our lives as far as the importance of mental health and being able to be our quest for being as productive as we can was really the key.
And I would say, Adam, too, there were some, like you said, there's great takeaways from having your first experience. Like I know, and I actually asked this question of my bridesmaid's husband. I said, so what are the hours? Because I cannot be in the office at 8. It's like physically impossible for me to wake up on time and be there at 8. So I know that I need a job that is fairly flexible with the arrival times. So then we were in the office, I'm averaging about 9 getting in the office. So if you are telling me that this role requires me to be there at 8 every morning, I'm just going to have to turn it down, because that's not how I am. That's, that, and to me, that keeps me keeps the stress away for me. So I think those are important things as you are transitioning into the workforce too, to know yourself, right? So don't try and fit yourself into a company standard of what they expect their roles to be and how they expect their people to perform. If that's not you and that's not a fit, then it's not a fit. So just know enough and respect yourself enough to know who you are and know, what you can and can't do. If you know you can't be there at 8 o'clock, then don't take a role where you have to be there at 8 o'clock. You don't want to set yourself up for failure. So I would just give that advice too, is just know yourself and be willing to wait and be patient until you can find something that fits into your lifestyle, into what you want.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. And, companies are trying to do a lot of things physically in the offices, like put breastfeeding rooms and all these types of things, which is very helpful for leadership and for management and things like that. But what would you suggest to the leaders on the phone, or even students wanting to become leaders and having to think about these things to address employee engagement and employee wellness? Like, what are some of the best practices you're hearing, Jaynaé, in the environment, because you live in this world? What's like the latest and best stuff?
So I think, just to put it simply, it's really, a lot of companies are now taking time, and I don't know if it was noticed before, but I think it's definitely more noticeable now with the pandemic. They're taking time to ask employees what they want. So you as an employee, what do you want in your office setting? What do you want as far as your role is concerned? I think a lot of companies, because they're realizing, a lot of employees are liking to work at home, they're not forcing employees to come in the office, because they know that there's so many other opportunities out there where you can work from home. So they are really listening to their employees and saying, okay, what do you want? Prime example is we had a survey come out at Southern Company, I think it was last week, asking, okay, so if we were to make over a perfect world, if we were to make over your office, what types of things would you want to include in your office? Would you want outdoor space? Would you want more meditation rooms? Would you want, like, a private space to do work, a quiet space instead of sitting in cubicles? Would you want a quiet space where you can go and like maybe focus and do some research? So they're asking these questions because they truly want to cater to the employees, right? Because from their perspective, it makes employees more productive. It makes employees more engaged. It's for the benefit of both employer and employee. So I think they're really taking the time to ask those questions and really listen to employees, because they know with the workforce the way it is with the pandemic, it's very easy to find a work from home position for another company. So they're trying to keep their employees because they value employees. They're trying to keep you satisfied, healthy, looking at your wellness, your overall well-being, and trying to cater to that.
Yeah, makes total sense. From a company perspective, because you see the data and all that kind of stuff, from a turnover perspective, why people leave? Are you getting a sense for why people are leaving?
So I think people are leaving, more money. Of course, that's really always the reason. But I would say either there's a very slightly change in benefits, so maybe there's something on the benefit side as in the benefit package that's more appealing to them in that situation, right? So if you, I don't know, if you are expecting, and maybe you are working at a company with no maternity leave, but then the company you're looking at has maternity leave that's paid. That's a benefit because you know you're preparing for the future. You know that you're gonna need 12 weeks to bond with your new child. And if this company that you're at now is not offering paid maternity leave, that's a bonus for the next company, right? So even so, it might not be money per se, but it might be that's a benefit that's offered that you don't have now. Even parental leave for dads, a lot of companies are offering that now. So maybe if you're a male and you want parental leave or paternal leave for your newborn child, and your current company doesn't offer that, but the new one does, that's another reason why you might leave. Just so it doesn't always come down to the money factor. But I would say just comparing the benefits and what is important to you right now in your life at this position in your life. Is it working from home? Is it having to drive to the office? For me, if I don't know what life is like driving to the office with the child because I haven't had to do that. So whenever that day comes, that's going to be an adjustment for us. But I know I love the work from home life. I know it's very convenient for us. So my next job opportunity, it would have to probably be a work from home. Just so I'm figuring out, and I think a lot of employees are figuring out what they want and how does that compare and contrast to what else is out there for them.
Yeah, I think organizations need to get realistic. Phil Smith and I know we both work at WellStar that coders, as an example, they've been working from home for years. They've one of the worker groups, coders, professional coders from a healthcare perspective, not programming. But they're just leaving. They're going wherever there's $2 extra, all that kind of stuff, because they can. They're going to work from home anyway.
Right.
And so there's the opportunity for businesses to also realize, and healthcare systems, that specific groups of people need to be treated a little differently to be able to keep the business going. And so it's an interesting thing, managing compensation versus wellness and all that kind of stuff.
And another thing, Adam, I'll say is a lot of companies that I've heard, I know the current administration has talked a lot about student loans. So a lot of companies are actually kind of stepping their foot forward and saying, hey, we'll help you pay for student loans. Come work for us. And that's an attractor, especially for my age group. That's a huge attractor. If somebody can help you pay down your debt for student loans, like that's going to put them up on a pedestal more than another company who doesn't. So just looking at those things and knowing, what is your workforce looking like? Who are you trying to attract? And then adding benefit programs or, time off programs that will attract that specific group of people.
And Keisha just put in a comment on that. I agree. I think the student loan comment, such a great comment, because if you look at the top stressor for people in their lives, whether it's us right here or families or older or elders, people are dealing with loans, and financial stress in some cases is probably the top stressor and anxiety and depression causer of people's lives. So I agree. I think the student loan piece is a really good topic. So Jaynaé, it is a very special day. It's all in twos. It's 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, just being on a special day of a whole bunch of twos, what accomplishment are you most proud of?
So I have two actually, and it's funny you bring up the 2/22/22 comment, because I hadn't really thought about it until I was like looking at people's stories and they're like, 2/22/20. I'm like, oh it is. And so this is a true statement. So at the end of this year, I had expressed to my husband and to my sister that I really wanted to be more kind of volunteer and sharing knowledge this year. That's my goal. So after I said that and spoke that information, I actually got the message from you, Adam, saying, hey, we have this series. And I was like, this cannot be real. Like, I just spoke this out loud like 2 weeks ago, and here you come with this message, right? So it's a little scary, right? So I think one of my accomplishments is actually saying yes to this, because I was like, I don't know if I should do this. Like, I don't know. But I saying yes to that because I had, I spoke that earlier into the year that I really wanted to take advantage of opportunities like this to kind of share my knowledge and guest speak and volunteer and things like that. So one of my accomplishments is just agreeing to do this, which I'm so grateful for the opportunity. And the second one is really taking that leap and doing and accepting the job at Southern Company. Because it was at a time where like I said, I'm very analytical. I was like, I'm comfortable. I don't know if this is going to work out. Let's just maybe stay with where I am. And I just feel like everything kind of fell into place, and I did what I was supposed to do at that time. And I took the position, and just glad and happy for myself that I was able to do that and transition to that new world. And I'm so glad that I did.
Jaynaé, I love like seeing your Facebook posts because you're not only working really hard as a professional and in your personal life with your family and Kennedy as a 2-year-old, but how are you personally, and I know the answer because I see your fitness videos, but how are you personally finding the freaking time to figure that out and be able to like release a little bit from a work perspective?
Yeah, I schedule, I'll say, but it's more so of a loose schedule. We talked about how I'm not an 8 a.m. person to be at work. So I'm very loose with kind of when I flow in and out. But I stick to a general schedule of things that I do in the morning, the time for daycare drop off, getting my workout in. It's usually in the morning or at midday, depending on what I have going on, but just being very flexible and fluid, but having kind of a guided schedule, I guess. So it's not, 8 o'clock, I'm doing this every day. But sometime in the morning I'm doing, X, Y, Z and getting things in. So I feel like having a sense or an idea of what you need to get done and just kind of doing it helps with my schedule. I'll also say forgiving yourself for not getting something done, right? So being at home, I've had friends who are like, well, I work from home and I really wanted to get the laundry done, or I really wanted to do the dishes. And I'm like, but you wouldn't be saying that if you were in the office. So you have to kind of give yourself some grace and say, even though I'm at home, I'm still working. While those things are nice to do's, they're not, I'm not going to stress myself out if that doesn't get done, because I know that if I was in the office, I wouldn't have time to do dishes at, noon because I'm in the office. So I think just understanding that and just kind of giving myself grace and treating, definitely treating my job as a job as if I was in the office, but also giving myself some flexibility to kind of get things done, like work out when I want to. That's been very helpful and help keep my stress levels way down.
Yeah, and I love that you also have a job that also respects that for you to be able to have the time to do that, you then come in more productive and you're able to do a good job.
Yes.
I've got one more question, and then I'm going to ask the audience to speak up, because I know several people on the line, and I will absolutely call on people to share their experiences. But Jaynaé, what advice do you have? Oh, and just nobody drop, please, if I just said that I know you and I'll call on you. So, but Jaynaé, what advice do you have for graduating seniors as they prepare to transition in the real world?
So I've kind of talked about this a little bit, but basically my advice would be to use your resources and continue to ask questions. I had a professor in undergrad, he's a biology teacher, don't ask me his name, but he was a biology teacher, and his advice that has always stuck with me, and it was a freshman class, so it's freshman biology. His advice was learn something until you can teach someone else, because that's when you really know it. So when I take time to learn things, I really try and learn so that I can teach someone something else, because then that means you really understand it. And putting it, and even another challenge is putting it in a way that they can understand, right? So you can say it at a scientific level, but if they're not there yet, how can you say it so that they can understand? So I would say that also taking this time, because well, as a grad student, I'll speak for myself. As a grad student, you don't have all the adulting things yet, right? So I would say take this time, which I would consider a luxury for you all. Take this time to really figure out what you do and don't want. And take every chance and every opportunity and every experience to even say, well, I don't know if this is what I want, but I know this is what I don't want. And that's okay. So like, it's okay to know that you don't want something. You might not figure out what you do want until years later, but you know what you don't want. So take this time to really experience, try new things, do things you wouldn't normally do, research things you wouldn't normally research, ask questions, talk to people who you wouldn't normally talk to, and figure out what it is that you like, what you don't like. And you have that luxury now. Because for me personally, now that I have a husband and I have a child, I don't have the luxury to try to kind of pick and choose and spend money here and some money there. I don't have that luxury. So I kind of narrow down what I know I don't want and what I don't know, what my life's goal. I haven't figured that out yet, but I do know what I don't like. So just take that time to figure that out. You have time. So before you graduate, just use all of your resources. If you have any favorite teachers that you would like to use as a mentor, ask them, ask questions. I can guarantee you that they'll be at least honored to be asked. So just use what's available to you. It's usually all free, because once you get out here in the real world, not everything is free for knowledge. So use what you have while you can, and just take it one step at a time.
I think that's great advice. I feel like your work relationship is like an actual personal relationship.
Yes.
And my dogs are agreeing with it. So all that. And it's true, because you have to, you always think things are greener on the other side. And, I want to go join this job because it's $16 more per hour and it's great for my life, etc. But your entire world could change, and your anxiety could increase, your depression, all those types of things. So it's back to the same themes you just brought up, Jaynaé, of networking, talking to people. It's literally like an actual relationship, because if you don't talk to people and sort of, express how you're feeling about things and vet things, you might make a decision that you regret. I've had 4 employees leave WellStar for a moment decision, and then go elsewhere and then try to come back. And I've learned from that. I've realized I made that decision myself. I wanted to come back into the provider world, leaving the vendor world, because that was consultancy and I could have traveled and it was so much fun. But then I realized I actually miss people. I miss people management. I miss people engagement. I miss all of it. And so I think you have to network, and you've got to talk. I've got a lot of vulnerabilities around that, and a lot of learning lessons. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. It's a huge topic. I wanted to open it out to the group, because we have a lot of smart people on the line that I know personally, and I'd love to find out if anybody has anything to mention or to chime in and weigh in on.
Hi, Adam. This is Cynthia Range. I work at Emory. I've never met you, but I work with Keisha and Rochelle and Jaynaé when she was there. Yeah, and I was just listening. Great information from the both of you guys. Thank you so much. I was just thinking, one of the things that stood out to me when you're going into a new job or transferring within, an organization to another department, which I've done a few times. I've been at Emory 15 years, so so I work in rev cycle now. And one of the things that always stood true with me is that when you go into a new environment, humbleness is huge, but also try to find something in common, a common thread or something to relate to somebody, to connect to somebody, no matter what their age is, how long they've been in there, because, we work in a multifaceted world. We have generation baby boomers, generation X, millennials, and that's just a huge thing right there to deal with by itself. But when you try to find a common thread with somebody, it really can take you a long way when you apply that humbleness to it.
I thank you, Cynthia, because I agree. I had a position at Emory, I think it was before you and I started working together, where I was actually in a managerial role, and I had someone who reported to me who was older. She was more experienced. So that can be something difficult too. But so to your point, yes, trying to find some common ground and some commonalities is great, and it helps with the relationship, because I'm sure she might have been thinking, well, who is this, young person coming in think they can tell me, and I was thinking like, what am I going to teach her? So just trying to find, some things in common definitely helps, I think, in those situations as well.
Yeah, we can all teach each other something. I
Yes.
actually went to a conference about 5 years ago, and it was dealing with all the generations, the baby boomers, Generation X, and all of that stuff. So the presenter had all these different scenarios, did skits. She had people with her that did skits. They showed video clips, and it was so eye-opening because working at Emory, I came from nursing administration, and nurses who have been there for 30, 40 years, they said nurses eat their babies, and good Lord, some of them were that mean, So finding common thread, with people, it was just so informational. I had never thought about that until this conference, and it really kind of changed my perspective too.
Yeah.
Very good comments, Cynthia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very relevant too.
Hey, Adam, it's LaTanya.
Hey, LaTanya.
Hey, Jaynaé. LaTanya McGinnis. I am a well-being consultant and have been consulting for many years. And a lot of our clients have really kind of tapped into diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging, and that tie to overall well-being. So I'm curious, like your thoughts on, how to incorporate, belonging and inclusiveness and all of those things. And even if you can share what you guys are doing at Southern Company and how you're partnering with others within the organization to address that for the, for well-being.
Sure. Yeah, so that's a great question, because we actually last summer, Southern Company did a summer series that focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, DE&I, if you've heard it as an acronym. And I loved it. So what they did with my group personally was they did a series of events over the summer that you can kind of pick and choose, what you wanted to participate in. The two things that come to the top of mind were a book. So we chose a book and we did like a book club. And I think the book was, So You Want to Talk About Race. So we read that as a group and kind of did a book club and talked about that and just kind of different people's experiences and their thoughts about the book, and shared whoever was open to sharing. The second thing we did was we watched a movie. Now that's escaping, the name is escaping me. But it was a movie basically about incarceration and Black incarceration. And we did that. We watched it live together. I think it was a Netflix series, but we watched it live together where we could comment on it live. People could see the chat, ask questions of one another. Has anybody ever experienced this? Do you feel comfortable sharing? What are your thoughts about that? So we've done that. And then more recently, as an organization, or I'll say as a benefits team, we are actually collecting and making a catalog of all the DE&I things that us ourselves are doing, as well as our vendors. So we have vendors, third-party vendors that we work with who may focus on DE&I initiatives. What are they doing? And then what are we doing as a benefits team, or in our larger team, total rewards, which includes compensation, retirement, technology benefits. What are we doing as a team to contribute to that and learn from that? And so we're putting together a catalog of the different things that our vendors are doing. And some of it's very impressive. Even my specific vendor, until I asked a question, honestly, I was like, wow, I didn't know that you guys are doing all this. So we're trying to highlight all the activities that our team is doing, as well as our vendors, and putting that together and trying to have conversations about that and really present that as hey, here's the great things we're doing. Here's what's coming. Let's do more of this. So it's celebrating kind of what we've done in the past, what we're doing now, but also pushing each other to come up with those initiatives for the future and seeing what's going to be available in the future.
Okay, awesome. And then just one quick follow-up, since you mentioned the benefits team. Is your benefits team looking at social determinants of health and using, that information to, refine their benefit strategy or your well-being strategy, taking those things into account where in the past they probably weren't?
Yes. So we actually get a report with our consultants every year. And that's come to more to the forefront, I would say, in the last couple of years, at least the last 2 years that I've been there. That's come to the forefront. So looking at what the benefits are, determinants of health, and how can we apply our benefit programs and go out and search for benefit programs that address those. So not everything is maybe something we have now, but maybe something that we need to look towards in the future. But yes, that's become, I think, more prominent over I would say probably the last year. That's become more prominent in the discussion.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Adam, it's Meredith. I just wanted
Hey,
to
Meredith.
jump in. Hi. First of all, this is Meredith Woodman. Thank you guys for being here. I'm on the executive board here as the secretary, and I'm so excited to see so many people on and really revived by this. And I appreciate everyone's time for today and being together. I wanted to say, especially to the students on the line, we're all, at the end of the day, we're all people, right? We all have that connectivity. We're all very different, but we have, with that willingness to learn and have active listening skills, it's such a important piece. And I think what you had said, Jaynaé, was so important. Know what you want. And sometimes you might not. As a graduating student, you might think you have it figured out, or you might have no idea, and that's okay. It's okay. We're all still figuring it out. But being open, having those mentors, both in college and outside of, lean on each other, lean on us. We're here as a collective, family. Honestly, that doesn't change when you graduate. It only gets stronger. I want you guys to know that. That's what our College Public Health Board means. We are here, we are dedicated, and we decide to be here and embrace you guys. So I just wanted to overall thank you guys for your time today, and thank you for your vulnerability. I heard this, I think, just 2 days ago, but it really rang true. And Adam, thank you for sharing your heart and your struggles, and Jaynaé, all that you've been able to share with us today. I think it's really important. Vulnerability is like a superpower, very difficult to do. But once you realize and you can share that in the right way when you're ready, it helps other people relate to you, and makes it, when people come in, maybe new, makes people realize they're just like me in a certain way. So I just wanted to say thanks so much, you guys, and great job today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. And I wanted to thank the CPH board, Simrina, Meredith, who just spoke, Adam Bowling, my twin, who looks different from me, Kim, Lanisha, and Erica, who's heading to a wedding and still joined. It's really appreciate the board and the support. Jaynaé, thank you for your time. You've been so inspirational as always. And I think the most important thing about tonight is connections and networking, as we've talked about. That will help to develop and improve our mental health and employee wellness and things like that, as long as we have a support group. And hopefully this is the beginning of that support group. It's great to have connections just in general. So Jaynaé, thank you so much. Any parting words before we end?
No, go dogs.
That's the best parting words after being national championships. Perfect. But seriously, thank you to everybody. Meredith said it greatly in terms of thanks to everybody's participation. I know we were right at the hour. So Jaynaé, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for the participation, and hope everybody has a fantastic night.
Thank you, Adam.
Go dogs.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jaynaé. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Have a good
Have
night.
a great one. Bye now.
You too.